Okay, good evening, members of the board. We are calling to order the meeting of the Oakville Public Library for the Thursday, February 23rd. Welcome everybody to the meeting. Before we get started, I want to read our territorial acknowledgement. The Oakville Public Library is situated on the Treaty Number 14 and Treaty Number 22 treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee. Oakville is currently home to many different First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Regardless of where we come from, we are all interconnected through the land we live on, the water that we use, and the air that we breathe. We are committed to a continuous learning journey and allyship. We seek to elevate Indigenous voices and lived experience to cultivate reconciliation in Oakville. Members of, Madam Committee Clerk, do we have any regrets this evening?
We don't have regrets officially, but Pankaj is not with us right now.
Okay, thank you. Members of the board, do you have any declarations of pecuniary interest to provide at this time? I do not see any. I want to draw your attention to item number 3, which is a confirmation of our previous minutes. We have our regular minutes from December 8th and our confidential minutes from December 8th. What is your pleasure here? Can I get a motion to approve potentially? Thank you, Stephen. Seconded by Bill. Thank you very much. Any comments, questions, errors, or omissions? Not seeing any. All in favor? And those are approved. We have 5 items on our consent agenda. Does anybody wish to separate any of those? Not seeing any desire for separation. Oh, I'm sorry.
I have one question about 4.4.
Can you push your microphone button, please? So we're separating item 4.4 was Performance Measures Report Q4 2022. Is there any other separations before we move forward with that? Can I get a motion to approve the staff recommendations on 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.5? Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. Andrew, thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. For the purpose of those watching potentially on YouTube, we just approved the Oakville Public Library key board agenda items, item 4.1, 4.2, the 2022 year-end health and safety report, 4.3, the health and safety report, and 4.5, the information technology solutions service level agreement, otherwise known as the SLA. And we've separated 4.4 performance and measures report Q4. You have the floor.
I just had a question about the performance measures report. And so I'm noticing that we've been reporting 2020 and 2021, but I would really be curious to see what the circulation is like pre-COVID. Is it possible, or is there any sense as far as if we return to pre-COVID levels?
Yeah, that is something that we've been monitoring, and we can bring information back to the board on that. Last time we checked, we were just hitting like 90 to 92% of pre-COVID. And that's similar to what we're seeing also with traffic. So we're definitely in the final stages of recovery. Yeah, but I can confirm those numbers and bring it back.
And in like future performance, is it possible to add in like the 2019 metrics, just like moving forward, just so that we can kind of see how?
So permanently add them in for the 2023.
Just because 2020 just isn't such a great comparison.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
Is that all, Meredith?
Yes.
Thank you. Would you mind moving the approval of the staff recommendation, please? Thank you. That's been moved. Can I get a seconder, please? Thank you, Savannah. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. That takes us to our, there are no confidential consent items, and that takes us to our discussion items, starting with 6.1, which is a comprehensive financial review as at December 31st, 2022.
Sorry, I had to find it in the book.
No problem.
So as indicated in the year-end 2022 report, the library's unaudited surplus for 2022 is just over $400,000. The development reserve is just over $200,000, and the Halton information provider's year-end balance remains healthy at just over $100,000. There are a number of reasons that the surplus has increased from what we presented at the previous comprehensive financial report, and that is the result of some negotiations that were completed as part of the joint job evaluation project that was wrapped up. as well as continuing shifting through the staffing as vacant positions become filled with existing staff and the cascade that's been causing, which we've seen that trend throughout this year.
Page, I can't remember, it's receipt or approval?
It's receipt.
It's receipt? And so it is. Can I get somebody to move receipt of the item? Thank you, Bill. Seconded by? Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving on to 6.2, that's the 2022 Audit Planning Report. And, oh, there we go. I was
Yeah, so
wondering.
I'll just hand it over to Jade.
Good evening,
Hello.
and thanks. Hi, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to bring forward the audit planning report prepared by KPMG. A quick introduction, my name is Jade Surgener, and I'm the town's manager of accounting, and I'll be the main point of contact with KPMG throughout the duration of the 2022 audit. Tonight, the recommendation before you is to receive the 2022 audit plan. And the reason it's for receipt is that KPMG is completely independent from management and from the board, and they have standards that they need to follow when conducting their audit. But from a transparency standpoint, it's important to present it to the board so that you are aware. Similar to prior years, KPMG is not here this evening, so I'll be answering any questions, but they'll be coming forward to the board meeting in April to present the outcome of their audit findings. Before jumping into the highlights, I did want to just quickly explain why the audit plan is being presented in February instead of November like in the past. So under the Municipal Act, local boards such as the library are required to use the same auditor as the municipality. So in this case, the town of Oakville. And last year was the last year of KPMG's 5-year contract, but there was the ability to extend it for an additional 5 years based on council approval. With the election results pending, we wanted to wait for the new term of council to be in place before bringing forward this recommendation. And we brought the recommendation forward in December and it was approved. So going forward, we'll plan to come to the board in November again. This was just the timing of the contract ending as well as the election. In terms of the KPMG report, I won't go into everything, but I did want to highlight some of the key aspects of their plan. The first is that there are no new accounting standards for 2022 year end, but KPMG has highlighted that in 2023, there will be a new standard coming into place for asset retirement obligations. And so management's in the process of evaluating this standard and the impact that it has on the library. And we don't anticipate any major changes given the nature of your capital assets, but we will be bringing forward any information as we come across any changes. In terms of the materiality for this year's audit, it has been set at $320,000, which is up from 2021 where it was $290,000. But the benchmark remains the same between 2 and 3% of revenues. And just as a reminder, that the concept of materiality is saying that anything above this threshold, any misstatements above this threshold, would be misleading to users of the financial statements. This isn't to say that the auditors aren't looking at anything. They can vouch any information at any dollar value, and any incorrect amounts above $15,000 would be brought to the board's attention at the April meeting. Whether or not we include it in the final statements or not, it would be highlighted to you. So the 320,000, it seems like a really big number, but the auditors are looking at everything under as well. The audit areas of focus for 2022 are ensuring that management has recorded the revenue and expenses in the right period. They'll be reviewing the estimates around the post-retirement benefit obligations and ensuring that they are accurate, and then validating some of our larger items, such as payroll and capital asset additions to the collection. KPMG explains their audit approach for each of these sections in detail, so I won't go into the specific procedures, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have on the year-end process. And if you have any questions specific to the auditors, I can reach out to them and ask them to respond to you directly via email. At this time, after reviewing the KPMG report, is there anything I can help clarify related to the 2022 audit plan?
Just a quick question. We've renewed for 5 years with KPMG. I got it right?
Correct.
Yep, okay. Thank
So
you.
they will be the auditors for the fiscal year ends 2022 through to 2026.
So they're in line with the towns? The towns?
Correct.
Okay. And is,
Yeah, and
I would assume that's a standard procedure that we do with the library in the town? We maintain a parallel schedule?
Yeah, correct. Because under the Municipal Act, any of the local boards that are consolidated into the statements are required to be audited by the same firm. And so when we go out to RFP for audit services, we include the library and the BIAs as well as the town and the trust.
Great, thank you very much.
Nope, I think that's it. Those are all the questions for this evening. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks for your time.
So members of the board, I would now require a motion to, I think I do prefer the digital copy, Jessica. I'm not used to paper anymore. The motion is to receive for information. So I'll look for that motion, please. Thank you, Andrew. Seconded by Meredith. Thank you very much. Last call for comments, questions? All in favor? That is received. Okay, let's move on to 6.3. That's the 2022 year-end employee retention and turnover metrics.
So the report before you kind of highlights our employee retention for the last year. You will see that it does align with our 2021 rate, but is higher than 2020. As related to COVID. One of the things that I will highlight is that we are seeing a broader spectrum of reasons individuals are leaving the organization. And one of those reasons is previously, we had almost 60% of our workforce at a retirement age. So we were skewed. So as people have retired, that was one of the reasons that retirement was so high the last few years. But now that we have a more balanced workforce, it stands to reason that the reasons that they leave would be more broad, such as career opportunities, just personal retirement as well. So happy to answer any questions about it, though.
Questions? Thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, thank you very much. My eyesight's not what it could be, but career advancement, I'm just trying to look at that column. There's lots of different reasons for people advancing their careers, obviously. Can you just, I'm not asking for names, obviously, but can you just give us a flavor of what kind of thing are people doing if they're saying it's career advancement? Do they feel they could not advance their career at OPL?
So it's different opportunities. So some of it is moving from part-time to full-time work. As opportunities become available in other library systems, like any organization, it's a bit of a pyramid, so there are always lesser positions up. So if somebody is ready to move into a manager role or director role, and we don't have a vacancy for that, it makes sense that they would look at opportunities at other organizations. So that's primarily what we're seeing in terms of career advancement.
Did, anecdotally or measurably, did those people tend to stay within a library board sector, as it were, or were they going to... I'm just wondering, is the private sector coming and picking people off?
Not that I can think of. I can't think of anybody that I know who has left libraries.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Great, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Further questions? Andrew?
Maybe building up Meredith's earlier.
Microphone, please.
Would you happen to have metrics from 2019 handy? And if not, could we bring those forward to the next meeting?
Yep, no, I can include those.
Okay, thanks. The reason I ask is just understanding that retirements have been high, and so you're seeing a broader quantity of reasons. it seems like the actual turnover percent is increasing, but without having that 2019 baseline, it's really hard to see.
Yep, no, I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Meredith?
So I just wanted to make sure I was interpreting chart number 3 correctly. So overall, the turnover for full-time staff is relatively low at 8%, and most of the turnover is happening with the part-time and the casual staff, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. And which I think is really, from what I can see, a positive number. I was curious if the library conducts any like employment engagement survey or any way to, measure, keep a pulse on like employee satisfaction and engagement.
Yeah, we do that in a couple different ways. So for the past 2 or 3 years, we participated with the town in a pulse survey that normally happens late spring, early summer, kind of take a staff engagement pulse at that time. The questions have shifted since we introduced it in 2020, but it's been quite positively received. So our understanding is that the town will continue to do that, and we will continue to do that. We always take that information, meet with the different management groups, and then kind of put together work plans to kind of move some of those metrics forward. We also do exit interviews as part of that process, and take that information and build it. And as indicated in the CEO update. What we also do is, we take that pulse survey, we make some updates, some changes, and then we've been introducing focus groups kind of like midway to see what that impact is, and is it having the impact that we hope it will? And also trying to get more, because surveys, they're helpful, but they provide limited amount of information. So we do use focus groups to kind of like dig into some of the topics or trends that we're kind of seeing to try and get better understanding.
Thanks, Meredith. Andrew?
Sorry, a follow-on question. You've got the bar for end of contract, and it occurs to me that, maybe that should be grouped somewhat with involuntary, because presumably we might have, found other roles for those people if we're still hiring. So if you break down the reasons, we've sort of got on the right side of the bars, we've got the more personal reasons from moved to school, and on the left side, we've got more of the career-focused reasons. So it does look like it's skewing much, much higher in 2022 versus the prior year. But is it safe to assume that those end of contracts, separations of employment are, we didn't want to retain the person in a different role that might have come up?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So we're constantly posting new roles,
Yes.
but we've got people leaving it because of the end of their contract.
Yes.
So presumably we could have retained them if we chose to. We had a place for them.
Yeah. I'll need to actually, I can get back to you because I need to clarify that. Because we also have internal contracts, so our internal contracts in there where somebody could be in one role and takes a contract in another role. But I think these are exiting ones, but I'll confirm that. But I just can't think of an example where that's actually happened. Yeah, and I guess end of contract is the way we separate them is they know it's a contract, they understand that it has an end date to it, and that they're welcome to apply if there is an opportunity that comes up, versus involuntary is involuntary.
Okay. I wonder if it might make more sense then to pull those contract numbers out entirely so we can look at the permanent turnover.
So we can do it both ways,
Yeah.
maybe if that would be good.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Andrew. Further questions, Bill?
Yeah, I couldn't quite catch what Andrew was saying, but in terms of the involuntary reason, what exactly is included in that? What is that exactly?
So in this case, we moved facilities over to the town. So there was, that was related to that,
Okay.
As well as the vaccination policy.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions? Were the staff displaced for facilities offered opportunities at the town, or were they basically, there was no way to absorb them in the organization?
There was an opportunity presented to them to stay in OPL. We did have conversations with the town. They were welcome to apply as part of the town process,
Right.
but we didn't have the opportunity to shift them.
I see. Okay. And the 83% retention rate for Q4 2022, do we know how that lines up with our comparator libraries?
Yeah, we're pretty much on par, at least with Milton and Burlington, because we do speak with them pretty regularly.
Okay, that's good news. Okay, members of the board, I need a motion to receive this information. Would somebody give me that? Thank you, Ray. Seconded by Bill. Thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. The next item on the agenda is the 2022 CEO Goals Final.
So this is just a wrap-up of my 2022 goals. There isn't a significant amount of new information for the board. The majority of this work was done throughout the year last year. The two items that were updated for this related to the diversity and inclusion strategic framework, as well as the talent management framework that were both presented in December. As part of my 2023 goals, there'll be more detail on how we're going to take those strategies and actually implement them, and then be marked and reported on throughout this year, I guess. I chose not to bring my 2023 goals to this board meeting. I'm bringing it to the next board meeting. But I would be also interested if anybody has any thoughts about what they'd like to see included as part of those that I'll be bringing next month.
Okay, members of the board? Comments, questions, suggestions for goals for 2023? Ray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and call me out of line if I'm asking this question about facility acquisitions and being new to the committee, and I do apologize for not having that detailed background. But are you familiar with, of course, the downtown library? Of course you are, and what's happening. Can you indicate in your reports the status and progress on that? I guess it dovetails into the town's cultural hub and so forth, but I think that's very important. The central library and what the status is going to be and what the future will be. I'm very interested in that as one component.
No, absolutely. Currently, that sits fully with the town, but I am part of that team and part of that process. So I can absolutely report on that, and I'll figure out a way to frame it as a goal for that. We actually move that forward, hopefully.
Can I just clarify, is the information you're looking for strictly on central, or are you looking at all facilities?
Well, I guess is having the library master plan. It's all part of a segment of the master plan, but I think it's really important with the central library, because we have so much up in the air, as you understand, Mr. Chair, is with the pool, the library, and the theater, and what the status and where we're going to go with that. And I mean, even at council, we're not sure our status on that, but it's very important that we stay on top of it and be in the threshold of any developments on that. So if we have comments as a library board to make back to staff of the town, because you don't want to lose out on opportunities that might be coming up. So that's all I'm saying. We just want to be on top of that as time comes on and keeping the board aware of it.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further comments on this? Okay, so I have a couple. First of all, in terms of your personal goal with respect to the anti-racism certificate, that's fascinating. I remember when you indicated you're going to do that. Do you have any like top level learnings that you could pass on? Anything that you took away from that you feel is an early win that you can implement at the library?
I think. What I mostly took away from that is that it's very complicated and very complex. But it was a really great starting point. And I think right now what we're trying to do, and that was part of the DEI strategic framework, is how do you take it from theoretical learning to actual application? We did have our first meeting with our DEI employee resource group in February. I think it went really, really well. We're meeting again next week, and we're already talking about how we can take the policy evaluation tool focused on DEI that the McMaster students created for us last year and actually start applying that to our services and policies to do a really fulsome review of where our gaps may be and how we can kind of fill that. The anti-racism certificate through CCDI, it was 4 different sessions. I will say that the micro-credential from Sheridan around building literacy in an equitable practice was more meaningful in a lot of ways. It was also 12 weeks. And so if that comes back up, I would strongly suggest that if people are interested, and it was an amazing course filled with amazing people who were very willing to be open and vulnerable and share the microaggressions that they experience on a daily basis, which is, for an individual who doesn't necessarily experience that, very eye-opening. And being able to have those conversations and understanding our role in allyship, and understanding that it's progressive and that you need to start somewhere. And then how can we then bring that into our organization as individuals, but also through our policies and services? It really allows you to put on a different type of lens. And these courses, I think, also allow you to recognize your own biases and kind of move through some of that, for that you can see.
Do you, have you considered applicability to your work and how, maybe that's one of your goals, potentially one of your goals is to determine how to incorporate your learnings into 2023, like what goals you might want to set as a result of this investment in your time and work in this particular course?
Yep.
Okay. I had another one that I wanted to ask you about as well. Yeah, so I don't see the goal I was going to ask you about now. I know that you and I met a few years ago, and one of the goals was to work on external relationships. I don't see that in this report. Is that in here and I just missed it?
That was a main focus of the 2021.
Right.
But isn't necessarily.
I thought we carried it over because of COVID, you weren't able to spend that much time on it. And
Yeah, we did, as part, because when I rewrote it, it was somewhat part of the strategic plan.
Right.
And the outreach that we did as part of that. I'm happy to say that we have established, reestablished some relationships and are continuing to kind of build and grow those as we go. What we're looking at right now is really trying to understand, we have a partnership policy, we're revisiting that a little bit, but really where is the value in us and the value in the partner to really figure out how we're benefiting the community as a whole. We have had a number of organizations reach out to us, and we're really, because part of our role is to support them, but also recognizing where the line is sometimes with that. I do have regular meetings with a number of executive directors at organizations throughout Oakville, and we continue to actually, one of the things that we're talking about is actually starting a DEI group of executive directors and nonprofit CEOs within the community to kind of share learnings. We're all at different places. So if we can help organizations that are, following us, but also learn from organizations that are ahead of us. So that's something that a group of us are talking about and hoping to start this year.
That's a fabulous idea, actually, knowing a little bit about that sector. Maybe that should be a goal of yours coming forward, that you take leadership in establishing that.
Yep, I could do that.
Because that would bring fame and acclaim to both you as the executive director, but also, or the CEO, but also to the library as being a leader in that field. One more thing that we could lead on right in the community. Because again, having some experience in that sector and having a spouse who works in that sector as well, I know that there's a lack of communication. And it would be fantastic if the library could facilitate that. Anyway, those are my suggestions and my questions. So thank you for your hard work, and thank you for the goals that you have achieved in 2022. Well done.
Thank you.
Bill.
I just wanted to say that in all my 38 years with the bank, I would have been tickled to have completed all of my goals in a particular year.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Maybe that's why you didn't make 23 years.
I tried hard,
just
okay?
kidding,
I tried
just
hard,
kidding.
okay?
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to receive this item, please? Thank you, Ray. Seconded. Thank you, Savannah. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving right along, hot on the heels of that report, we have the CEO update.
So first up, just a quick update on North Park, or the permanent 16-mile branch. So the tender will close on February 24th. This is later than we originally expected, but is due to the high number of questions that have been submitted on part of consultants. So we're hoping that'll actually translate to some really solid applications. The updated estimated construction start date is now likely mid-April to early May, but we'll keep you updated. Should have much more information about that at the March meeting. So the Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Facilities Master Plan is also underway. We did facility tours with the consultants the week of February 6th. Currently, tomorrow, the project team is working with the consultant on the public consultation elements, the survey questions, the conversations they'll be having with council and the board. So more information will come once we have all of that scheduled and structured.
Sir, can I ask a question here? Is part of the plan to have individual conversations with board members and councilors, or meeting with, or discussion with them as a group, or will there be any input from those groups at all?
There's definitely, I know that the library board is a consulting group. I made sure that was in there. I'm not sure how we're going to approach it. I want to talk to them about, that'll be part of the conversation tomorrow, whether or not they want to come to a board meeting, or whether or not they want to contact board members individually.
It may be worthwhile considering, instead of a board meeting, to have a less formal workshop setting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So Central Branch update. So Central Branch continues to recover. So on February 4th, Central Branch experienced a significant water event. We did reopen on February 13th, and I would just like to put a major shout out to the town's facility team, who were tremendous during that time. Luckily enough, the majority of damage was to staff areas on all 3 floors, including the Water Street return station. The return station remains unavailable. You can kind of see in the picture, there was water pouring out of it. This is later in the afternoon. When I arrived at 6 a.m., there was water pouring out of the windows and the return station. So it was quite the adventure. So we are continuing to work with the insurance adjuster. Jennifer Stevens, our new Director of Customer Experience, met with the insurance adjuster on Tuesday. So hopefully they will sign off on everything and we can actually start with repairs. The return station needs to be fully replaced. So that will be down likely for a significant amount of time. We're hoping to turn that around as quickly as possible, but we do have to order from a vendor once we get approval. And I think the estimate is that's around $60,000 to replace.
Oh my goodness.
So.
Has there been discussion around how to avoid this in the future? Like, has there been, now that we've had this one incident, has there been thought as to, because that's an old building with lots of sketchy infrastructure. Has there been thought on how we will avoid this in the future?
I have thoughts. But for this particular building, you know, it was interesting because it was the humidifier unit as part of the HVAC, and it does have a heat sensor, but one of the heat sensors failed, and that's where it leaked. So they are looking at it, but I guess it does get monitored pretty regularly. It was just this I don't want to necessarily call it a fluke, but it was just like a perfect storm of this heat sensor broke, and that's where the water kind of came in. Which my understanding is what happened here at Town Hall as well. So I know that Facilities is doing a review.
Okay, thank you. Ray?
Thank you, Jeff. Just a couple comments, and your comment about sketchy. This was built in 1967. It is a concrete slab, and it is well built. I mean, if we had a nuclear bomb, that place would still stand. But it has, the infrastructure within is old, and I have experience because of the pool next door and the challenges we've had that over the years. My concern is, and just to go on record, is that if we keep putting money into it, it's probably money we're going to be throwing out the window. We need to move on what we're going to do with this property and what we're going to do with the Central Library. And it's built on the side of a hill. Accessibility is very, very weak. The parking and the water issues we have, we're partially on a floodplain. So I think we all know what the challenges are for the Central Library, but that whole complex I'm hoping that we move in the right direction, because we're going to be putting new money into old infrastructure, and it does not bode well for the taxpayer and the financials with this. So that's just my point of view on it, and understanding the history of this building. So Tara, good luck in keeping this one going.
And it has been a challenge, and the board members would recognize and remember that we have brought forward requests for funding, $1 million here or $2 million there throughout the years to try and just keep it running, and none of that has been approved. So at least to a certain degree, we're not throwing bad money away, but the challenge is that the infrastructure is becoming challenging each year. So one of the things that we have been discussing as part of the DCH is understanding what are the options are, but also what is the end of life of that building and what are the timelines we're actually working with. This flood was a challenging one, simply because of the scope of it. But for those of you who are in Central regularly, it leaks almost every month. We have water upstairs, so, and that's from those, I don't know what they're called. What are they? The domes, yeah. I know that facilities has tried resealing them numerous times, but so it's not an unusual sight in Central to see garbage buckets around Central, so, yeah.
Thank you. Oh, Meredith has a question or comment.
Yeah, and I'm curious about, like, in, hindsight is 2020, and looking back, did you feel like there was, the emergency response plan, as far as how these sudden emergencies happen? Was there any kind of reflections on things that would have been done differently, or did you feel like there was a good emergency plan in place to respond to this?
We've had a lot of conversations. This was interesting in particular in that we were extremely lucky. We know that the event happened sometime between 11 at night and 6 a.m. We are extremely lucky that our courier went in at 6 a.m. Because if staff had gone in, that it would have been water for another 3+ hours, plus it took us an hour or so to turn it off. However, the courier called me, and I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not overly familiar with the facilities of that building, so it was the two of us did have to learn. When we both got there, he was like, "Where is the door to the roof?" I know now. I know where the key to the door to the roof is, but we did have to figure it out. So there is a lot of learnings that we kind of put in place now about access to information, who has access to different buildings, the security codes, with all of those, because normally it's the staff and the managers that kind of manage that. So there's those pieces to it. There's also the reminder that we shouldn't leave personal items on the floor. Oh, no. Because a lot of staff lost personal items because it was on the floor, or just boxes of files that were just on the floor, right? And because you don't think about it. So there's things like that I think we're talking about, how we can just, even when we're doing our health and safety walkthroughs, like with those eyes to be like, and I think when we buy furniture, we'll definitely think about furniture that's up a little bit, because some of us have up and some of us didn't, and that's the furniture that stays and that's the furniture that's going. So I think there's all kinds of lessons that we're still working through that we'll be able to apply moving forward.
Put all the desks on pontoons. Ray?
Thanks, Tara, for I guess the status report, but it brings up a couple of questions, and you indicated my antenna went up. Do we not have a protocol with respect to emergency, like in evenings or nights for the facility? Like, I know that our arenas and our pools all have a protocol on emergencies. Does the library have a similar policy?
So all library buildings are owned by the town.
Yeah.
And so they're supported by town facilities. So they have the same processes that are in play in terms of, in a perfect world, the sensor would have gone off and that would have went to a town facility person who then would have addressed it.
I guess my question, when you say you're not aware of that facility, do you not have a fallback of a person that you're tied to in your protocol to call?
So after the courier called me, I called the town's facilities on-call person. Okay. Just happened to be an individual who wasn't familiar with this building. It was just luck of the draw that it just happened to be someone who'd only been in the building once or twice versus somebody who's more familiar with it. And that's simply how, the town has a lot of facilities, and this gentleman worked more on a different side. However, I think that that's also part of the learnings that we had conversations with facilities as how we can do better at making a broader range of facility support aware of more buildings.
As you're aware, we sunset the pool. Are you in conversation with the Commissioner, Commissioner Bell, with respect to what their ideas with respect to that pool and what the status is on that? Does it impact the library at all?
I'm not sure really how to answer that question. One of the things that will be looked at, and my understanding is that council voted on a decentralized model for the downtown cultural hub. And that I think there's $1 million in the 2023 budget for the town to look at various options. I'll be part of that conversation. And I do sit on Commissioner Bell's team. So I am part of all of those discussions. We just haven't necessarily had them to date. I know that there's been numerous feasibility studies and different options that have been presented. It's my understanding that they want to relook at some of those. And so I'll bring that information when it comes.
Thanks, Tara. Appreciate it.
Meredith?
I guess maybe just further to that point though, like with this event and the indication of the state of the repair of this building and the kind of finite life of the building, is there like a sense that maybe like the plans need to be accelerated for, because I understand there's some, development things that are outside of the library's control, but are we concerned that the timelines may not fit with the lifespan of this particular structure?
So I think that's really part of the goal that the $1 million that's put aside to really look at that. I'm more, and Colleen is there. I'm more confident now that council's voted on a decentralized model, because I think that does mean that we might have more options versus when we were looking at it as a full group, in which case everything would kind of have to be in place. And I do believe as part of that, we are going to look at the different facilities, and then it does give us the option to look at different timelines potentially for different ones rather than doing everything at once.
Commissioner
But
Bell
Colleen may have more information.
Sorry, Commissioner Bell wants to jump into the conversation. Good evening, Colleen.
Good evening, board members. Through you, Mr. Chair. In the 2023 budget, there is a request for $1 million to begin the work on the feasibility study for the downtown cultural hub. There has been a great deal of work that was already done, but it was quite a while ago. So we want to update that. So one of the things that we'll be looking at as part of that feasibility study is the whole issue around building condition assessments. So the two areas in particular that we're a bit concerned about is, as Councillor Chisholm has rightly observed, the age of the Oakville Public Library and the age of the theater, because they were built around the same time. And both buildings have some outstanding issues. I think the intent is that the library would be one of the first buildings that would be looked at in terms of a potential retrofit or relocation to the post office. So part of that whole feasibility study will be looking at those very issues. We are conscious of the fact that we are dealing with aging buildings that are not aging as well as one would hope. So stay tuned. Hopefully council will approve that request on Monday night, and then we will be able to come back to this table and identify what the body of work is that we're going to undertake and what the timing is.
Thank you. Meredith, did that help answer the question? In short, it's a complex, multifaceted undertaking. This is a monumental project on the part of the town, and it's taken time, and it will continue to take some time to get us to the right decision. Okay, you may proceed with the balance of your report.
So we were just talking about the 2023 budget. So the budget committee completed its deliberations Tuesday past. Throughout the budget, no questions were asked regarding the library's operating or capital budget. And given that we are expecting that the OPL budget will be passed on Monday and we can move forward with that. The only other thing I wanted to mention about this is that there was a delegation to budget committee from the Pink project, or Project Pink, about including menstrual products in bathrooms, both for the library as well as the town. So right now, the Budget Committee did add in money for that into the town's budget, but we would be part of that project, and we're already having conversations with Recreation and Facilities about how we would incorporate that. So more information will come as the budget gets approved and we introduce that project, which we're very excited about. It's something we've been talking about for a while. So. I also wanted to mention that the town is undergoing a security review, and as part of that, the OPL board will be completing an evacuation exercise at a later board meeting. Right now, we're thinking it might be March, but we'll just keep you guys informed with that. OPL is part of the overall review, and will update its own policies, procedures based on the recommendation from the review. So once that review is fully complete, we will bring those to the board for consideration. So Winter Reading Club. So this year we brought back Winter Reading Club for another year. The program runs through February 28th. It's a fun bingo edition where we ask people to cross off different genres of books or different types of books as they kind of read it. We have them sign up through our Beanstack app. And it's been very successful so far. So we're excited to bring that back for a second year and continue to kind of grow that. It's kind of the balance to our summer reading club. So how can we take that kind of fun all year round? And winter is really the perfect time, especially the past couple days. So OPL celebrates Black History Month. So we've had a number of really successful programs. There are still some remaining throughout the month. So if you're interested, please do check them out. As I mentioned in the actual report, I do also want to mention that we do Black History programming all year round. It's important to do it in February, but I just want to recognize that we do also encourage the reading of Black authors and Black presenters about Black-related issues all year round.
As Andrew Terrell, who is the president of CCH, likes to say at Black History Month events, I'm Andrew Terrell, and I'm Black 12 months of the year.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, we've had some really amazing programs, some that we've run in partnership with the CCAH. I'm from Halifax, so I found the Africaville one particularly interesting with that, and because that's a story. So yeah, we're really excited with the depth and breadth of offerings this year, and we look forward to growing that over the next year. Creation Zone programming, we introduced a new, it's not really technology, a new art form, Sassico? So we're just excited to introduce Japanese embroidery techniques, and it was really well received and was led in partnership with the Creative Community Hive. So again, going back to where we can partner with organizations that really enhance our services. The Deboywan project, the board already knows because I sent out an invitation that we are hosting an event on February 28th on Oakville's Treaty Day at Central Library. That is part of the Deboywan project. I sit on the Ally Leadership Committee, and that is that partnership. We are having guest speakers, Emma Selter and Georgia Laforme. Emma was commissioned by the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation to write a report on treaties in Oakville. And so this is the launch of that report. The Oakville Community Foundation will be printing that report, and it will be available for that. We'll also have it in the library. I'm really excited to read it and have it presented to us and have Emma be able to answer questions for the community about what treaties are and what it really means, particularly the Mississaugas of the Credit, because that's definitely an interesting example. With that. So again, we very much invite the board to attend. It looks like it might be at full house, fingers crossed. And we're holding it in the rotunda at Central. The board approved the AXA of Allyship campaign at a previous board meeting. However, we also continue to encourage individuals to enter their personal declarations into the Deboywan project about what you as an individual are doing in order to forward truth and reconciliation. It could be something as simple as learning more, or definitely something more involved in the community. If anybody has any questions or want to be connected, please feel free to reach out. But one of the things that we really talk about is truth and reconciliation really is only driven locally. That is where its strength and its power will come from. So how do we continue to push that forward, and as a library and as individuals? And that is.
Thank you. Members of the board, do you have any further questions for Tara's presentation, or for Tara and her presentation? I'm not seeing any. That's a lot. Thank you. I do have one. Is the library still purchasing DVDs, or are we just running down our existing collection?
No, we're still purchasing DVDs. They're very much still in demand. They're getting harder to get.
Yeah.
So naturally, I think they will fall out in that they're just not being produced, particularly as streaming services start to create their own series, right? Because people come and they want Ted Lasso, but Apple's not necessarily putting Ted Lasso on DVD, or if they are, it's taking them several years to actually get to it. We also get a lot of requests for old DVDs, and we try not to necessarily purchase those. We tend to try and use interlibrary loan where possible, because where they exist out in the community. But both DVDs and CDs both still are experiencing pretty strong circulation.
Okay. I would recommend there's a, during Black History, well, actually prior to Black History Month, we encountered a film called Honor Before Glory, which is the story of the 2nd Engineers Battalion in World War I, which was the first Black battalion. And it served Canada and went for almost 100 years, though, being recognized or thanked. And my new friend, Anthony Sherwood, was the producer, writer, director, and he starred in this movie. It was about his uncle's diary, and it's quite good. And we've shown it at our theater, and it's been shown a few other times. It'd be a great DVD to get into the collection, particularly if somebody can get it before the end of the month.
Yeah, no, we'll look at it, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Did I see there's a question over here? Meredith?
You had, earlier in the year, you had let us know that your executive assistant stepped down, and I was wondering if there was any update, if you have in the search for a new executive assistant.
So we haven't posted that yet. We're actually rewriting that significantly. Previously, when it was posted, it was very much traditional executive assistant, and I don't need help in the same way. So we're looking for somebody with a bit of a broader skill set who may have a bit more of a writing skill to help with reports, stronger research skills. So we're in the process of just tweaking that job description, but I am hoping very much that it will go out before the end of March, before the end of February.
On that hiring note, I do know that we have a new member of the team. Maybe you could take a second and introduce.
Absolutely, yeah, happy to do so. Yeah, so I'd like to introduce to the board Jennifer Stevens, our new Director of Customer Experience. Jennifer started on January 9th and has been amazing. She has definitely jumped right in, particularly with the flood of Central. But so there's
Yeah, exactly.
no rush. She had to jump right in, and already she feels like part of the family. So
Does she have a pair of OPL branded rubber boots?
no, but that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Especially here at Central. So yeah.
in light of that building.
Yeah.
Well, welcome aboard. Where are you coming from?
Vaughan.
Vaughan, okay. Well, we're the city beside Toronto.
Exactly.
One city away from Toronto, anyway. So welcome to the team. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Can I get a motion to receive the report from our CEO? Thank you, Stephen. Seconded by Meredith. Comments, questions? All in favor? That's received. Members of the board, I do need to draw to your attention that we do have a confidential matter that we have to go in camera for. Under the Municipal Act, we are entitled to go in sessions closed to the public for the purposes of various reasons, including personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees. So we do need to switch over to that mode. I look for a motion to go in closed session. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Andrew. Seconded. All in favor? That's carried. So we're going to turn the room into a vault of secrets and take a couple minutes. So why don't we recess Right now it is 7:55. Let's come back at, say, 8:05, and everybody can stretch and get a drink or something, then we'll come back to the in-camera session. Did I call the vote? I'm sorry, I just had a senior's moment. Did I call the vote? Good. Okay, good. Yeah. So this meeting is going in camera, and we're recessed until 8:05. And I get to push the button here, right?
No, you can say.
IT, do I get to push this button? Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I forgot.
Try to live
Cool.
I'm currently in my first of 3 years at Sheridan, so it's kind of fun to be at that point because you have all great ideas and you're not limited by actual technology. Sheridan College in the glass department here, they ran a bit of a competition amongst the students. I submitted my design and then it got sent off. One of the things that I did before I submitted my design to the town was I had a talk with the actual professors to make sure that it was doable.
It'll look not unlike this. The central piece will actually have a wave in it. It's got this oak leaf shape to it. When you look down on it, it'll have a nameplate on there, and then when it comes out of the mold, it looks not unlike this. It'll be on the end of the pipe, and we just break it off, and we put that into cool. And then when it's done, we saw it off right about here, and polish the bottom. So of course this one's been sawn already.
The process of the thing kind of goes like we start out with a spike of glass. We form we take a gather and we form it into kind of a conical piece of glass. Then we get a couple of what we call gathers. We gather glass on the end of a rod, and then we roll it in colored powder, which is basically really finely crushed glass with color in it. Then we melt that in. We roll it a few times just to make sure that it's got lots of solid color on it. What we do is we take molten glass out of the furnace and we roll it in this colored powder, the glass color, and it sticks. It'll stick to the glass, the hot glass. And then what we do is we take it over to the glory hole and we melt it in. So the glory hole gets it nice and hot, reheats the glass. Once it's melted in nice and neat, I'll take it over to Paul there and he'll stick it on a piece. But I want to get it pretty hot so that I don't have I get a nice small trail for him. And then we apply that onto our spike, right? So we have two colors. We have two guys doing it basically. We'll lay on one color and then we'll flip it over and we'll lay on the other color. So we have basically three rods of color together, right? Because we don't want the glass to cool off too much after he's done it, after he's formed his spiky bit there. We don't want the glass to cool off too much, and we don't want to have to reheat it over and over and over again. So it takes two of us with bit rods to form two colors, just so that we can put the one color on and then put the next color on. And then go and melt them together, because if we put one color on and then he melts it together, then we put another color on and he melts that in, it could melt in kind of a weird blurred shape. So if we put them both on at the same time, then they melt at the same rate, and that makes it much more crisp and nicer.
And so now we laid the color on the center bit, and we just have to melt the color in so it becomes one smooth pattern. Because if there's any seams or anything where the color is, when we plunge it into the middle, it's going to catch bubbles there. So that'll be little imperfections in the design.
Then we'll melt them together so that they're smooth, without a lot of edges, because if we have a lot of edges, we'll trap air, and we didn't want a ton of extra bubbles or special design of bubbles, so we wanted to make sure that it's all nice and smooth. Then what we do is we extrude it out a bit lengthwise and give it a twist, a nice slow twist, and that gives it kind of that helix of color. In this you can see the spike of color, but it has this nice, about 2 revolutions worth of color, in 2 revolutions of twist in color. Then we put a bit of a wave into it, so it looks kind of more like a flame. They're dirt from gravity, so this puts a nice bend in it. Then we have a graphite mold that's made out of a big block of graphite. It's a 2-part mold, so it splits in half basically. I'll get a ladle of glass out of the furnace, a big ladle of glass, and we pour that into the mold so it's full. And then the guy who formed the spike with a twist in it plunges that into the mold. So we plunge it straight down into the mold. We let it cool off a little bit so that it firms up, because glass is kind of like taffy, after a few minutes. We wait a little bit longer and it seizes up a little bit more. It's still flexible but not solid.
Just doing this to cool the edges here, set it up a bit.
Then we pull it out of the mold and we flash it in the glory hole, and that's to even out the heat. But also the flame in the glory hole will polish the one end. So this end here gets its smooth surface from what we call flame polishing.
And so we have to let it completely set up before we put it away. Otherwise, if we put it away too hot, it's gonna deform when it's in the annealer. The internal heat in it will actually deform the piece.
Yeah, the heat actually moves kind of slow, and the internal heat will come out to the external part of the piece, and then when it sits on the grating in the annealer, because the shelves are great, it can actually take on the shape of the grating if it was too, if it becomes too hot. Now the annealer itself isn't that hot, even though it feels like it. When you stick your head in there, it feels like it. It's not hot enough to actually deform, but the interior of the piece could be 300, 400, 500 degrees warmer than the actual exterior, and then that soaks out to the outside.
Yeah, the annealers are at 500 degrees, and these furnaces are at 2,000.
Yeah. Then we wait for a while until it seizes up. As soon as it stops moving, then we'll break it off and we'll put it in the annealing oven.
Now we're just creating a stress point in the glass. This is a really cool part now, so if I hit the glass, all the vibrations are gonna stop at that one point.
Then it'll sit in the annealing oven for about 57 hours. And that cools down slowly, and what it does is it takes all the stress out of the glass. Because all the forming that we do causes inconsistent heating throughout the glass, right? And even though we're flashing it and doing all kinds of things to it to try and even out the heat, it'll still have inconsistent heat through it. So what we do is we put it in the annealing oven, and it bathes it in a 550 degrees Celsius for a good 25 hours or so. Well, everything in a glass shop is a team effort, right? So I came up with the design. It's my design, but that doesn't mean that I'm the one who carries things out. I mean, there are a number of artists like that. They actually just design it, and somebody else actually makes the things. In this case, I've got the skill set that allows me to help out, right? And then plus I get to supervise. I get to look and see what's going on. Some other first-year students that are there are Paul Vandenbiggert. He's the one who's putting the twist in the glass. He's quite good at it, so we figured why reinvent the wheel for one of us to figure that out. And then there's Matt Crosby, and Matt's helping out with everything else, bringing bids, opening the door. You need to have a hand in the glass shop because there's so many things that are really hot that you just can't do it. You just can't hold a pipe in one hand and try and open the door with the other hand. Especially with this thing, it weighs too much. It's a good 5-10 pounds of glass on there. So it's important that I get Paul and Matt to help out.
Each one will be unique. It'll be at least slightly different. No matter how much we wanted them to be exactly the same, they'll always be a little bit different just because of how we did it.
The shape of this award, it takes on the shape which is actually an oak leaf. So if you look at it, it's oak leaf shaped, right? And that's of course Oakville's own built-in iconography. So what we did is we placed these spirals of color in the center to kind of symbolize an inner flame. So it's kind of like the inner fire that runs the town. So the volunteers have, are this energy that runs the town, and you don't get anything done without having a good core of volunteers willing to do the things that need to be done. So, so I thought it was important to have that in there, and it also kind of symbolizes the inner fire of the actual people who are volunteers, because they have to have a certain dedication that you don't see. So it's kind of a dual meaning in that regard. You've got the inner fire of the town and the inner fire in the people who are the inner fire of the town. The complexity of the piece actually requires that you have a few extra hands, especially when we've got a two-part mold. One guy plunges the piece into the mold, but he can't let go of the pipe to try and extract it. So it takes another two people to try and separate the mold off of it, because it can stick. Glass can get sticky at that temperature, and it can get stuck in the mold. And if we leave it in there too long, it's just going to crack. So we'll have a ruined piece at that point. So because graphite really sucks the heat out of the glass, right? It's like doing anything with it, touching metal to the glass, it'll suck the heat out of the glass. So it takes a couple of guys in there, sometimes prying, sometimes physically holding on to the mold with a pair of gloves on, and then Paul can pull it up out of there once it's out, once it's been freed. It's important to pull up vertically so that we don't snap off some of the vertical striations in the mold, like these bits in here. That's solid graphite in the mold, and if we twist it, we can snap them off, and then we've ruined the mold, and we don't want to do that, right? It takes a while to cut one of those things because it's 6 inches thick. So it takes a few hands to get things done. This is actually my first time in Oakville. It's a very nice town. Everybody's really nice here, and it's almost surprising, like how nice everyone is in Oakville, and also how dedicated volunteers are, and how important it is to actually give them some kind of award to recognize what they do. So it was great for me to sit down and go, hey, I get to make this thing.
Yeah, I forgot.
Try to live through
Cool.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
I'm currently in my first of 3 years at Sheridan, so it's kind of fun to be at that point, because you have all great ideas and you're not limited by actual technology. Sheridan College, in the glass department here, they ran a bit of a competition amongst the students. I submitted my design, and then it got sent off. One of the things that I did before I submitted my design to the town was I had a talk with the actual professors to make sure that it was doable.
It'll look not unlike this. The central piece will actually have a wave in it. It's got this outward shape to it. When you look down on it, it'll have a nameplate on there, and then when it comes out of the mold, it looks not unlike this. It'll be on the end of the pipe, and we just break it off, and we put that in to cool. And then when it's done, we saw it off right about here, and polish the bottom. So of course this one's been sawn already.
The process of the thing kind of goes like we start out with a spike of glass. We take a gather and we form it into kind of a conical piece of glass. And then we get a couple of what we call gathers. We gather glass on the end of a rod, and then we roll it in colored powder, which is basically really finely crushed glass with color in it. Then we melt that in. We roll it a few times just to make sure that it's got lots of solid color on it. What we do is we take molten glass out of the furnace and we roll it in this colored powder, the glass color, and it sticks. It'll stick to the glass, the hot glass. And then what we do is we take it over to the glory hole and we melt it in. So the glory hole gets it nice and hot, reheats the glass. Once it's melted in nice and neat, I'll take it over to Paul there and he'll stick it on a piece. But I want to get it pretty hot so that I don't have I get a nice small trail for him. And then we apply that onto our spike, right? So we have two colors. We have two guys doing it basically. We'll lay on one color and then we'll flip it over and we'll lay on the other color. So we have basically 3 rods of color together, right? Because we don't want the glass to cool off too much after he's done it, after he's formed his spiky bit there. We don't want the glass to cool off too much, and we don't want to have to reheat it over and over and over again. So it takes 2 of us with bit rods to form 2 colors, just so that we can put the one color on and then put the next color on. And then go and melt them together, because if we put one color on and then he melts it together, then we put another color on and he melts that in, it could melt in kind of a weird blurred shape. So if we put them both on at the same time, then they melt at the same rate, and that makes it much more crisp and nicer.
And so now we laid the color on the center bit, and we just have to melt the color in so it becomes one smooth pattern. Because if there's any seams or anything where the color is, when we plunge it into the middle, it's going to catch bubbles there. So that'll be little imperfections in the design.
Then we'll melt them together so that they're smooth without a lot of edges, because if we have a lot of edges, we'll trap air, and we didn't want a ton of extra bubbles or special design of bubbles, so we wanted to make sure that it's all nice and smooth. Then what we do is we extrude it out a bit lengthwise and give it a twist, a nice slow twist, and that gives it kind of that helix of color. In this you can see the spike of color, but it has this nice, about 2 revolutions worth of color, and 2 revolutions of twist in color. Then we put a bit of a wave into it, so it looks kind of more like a flame. They're dirt from gravity, so this puts a nice bend in it. Then we have a graphite mold that's made out of a big block of graphite. It's a 2-part mold, so it splits in half basically. I'll get a ladle of glass out of the furnace, a big ladle of glass, and we pour that into the mold so it's full. And then the guy who formed the spike with a twist in it plunges that into the mold. So we plunge it straight down into the mold. We let it cool off a little bit so that it firms up, because glass is kind of like taffy, after a few minutes. We wait a little bit longer and it seizes up a little bit more. It's still flexible but not solid.
Just doing this to cool the edges here. set it up a bit?
Then we pull it out of the mold and we flash it in the glory hole, and that's to even out the heat, but also the flame in the glory hole will polish the one end. So this end here gets its smooth surface from what we call flame polishing.
And so we have to let it completely set up before we put it away. Otherwise, if we put it away too hot, it's gonna deform when it's in the annealer. The internal heat in it will actually like deform the piece.
Yeah, the heat actually moves kind of slow, and the internal heat will come out to the external part of the piece, and then when it sits on the grating in the annealer, because the shelves are great, it can actually take on the shape of the grating if it was too, like if it becomes too hot. When the annealer itself isn't that hot, even though it feels like it. When you stick your head in there, it feels like it. It's not hot enough to actually deform, but the interior of the piece could be 300, 400, 500 degrees warmer than the actual exterior, and then that soaks out to the outside.
Yeah, the annealers are at like 500 degrees, and these furnaces are at like 2,000.
Yeah. Then we wait for a while until it seizes up. As soon as it stops moving, then we'll break it off and we'll put it in the annealing oven.
Now we're just creating a stress point in the glass. Like this is a really cool part now, so if I hit the glass, all the vibrations are gonna stop at that one point.
Then it'll sit in the annealing oven for about 57 hours. And that cools down slowly. And what it does is it takes all the stress out of the glass. Because all the forming that we do causes inconsistent heating throughout the glass, right? And even though we're flashing it and doing all kinds of things to it to try and even out the heat, it'll still have inconsistent heat through it. So what we do is we put it in the annealing oven and it bathes it in a 550 degrees Celsius for a good 25 hours or so. Well, everything in a glass shop is a team effort, right? So I came up with the design. You know, it's my design, but that doesn't mean that I'm the one who carries things out. I mean, there are a number of artists like that. They actually just design it, and somebody else actually makes the thing. In this case, I've got the skill set that allows me to help out, right? And then plus I get to supervise. I get to look and see what's going on. Some other first-year students that are there are Paul Vandenbigger. He's the one who's putting the twist in the glass. He's quite good at it, so we figured why reinvent the wheel for one of us to figure that out. And then there's Matt Crosby, and Matt's helping out with everything else, bringing bids, opening the door. You need to have a hand in the glass shop because there's so many things that are really hot that you just can't do it. You just can't hold a pipe in one hand and try and open the door with the other hand. Especially with this thing, it weighs too much. It's a good 5-10 pounds of glass on there. So it's important that I get Paul and Matt to help out.
Each one will be unique. It'll be at least slightly different. No matter how much we wanted them to be exactly the same, they'll always be a little bit different just because of how we did it.
The shape of this award, it takes on the shape which is actually an oak leaf. So if you look at it, it's oak leaf shaped, right? And that's, of course, Oakville's own built-in iconography. So what we did is we placed these spirals of color in the center to kind of symbolize an inner flame. So it's kind of like the inner fire that runs the town. So the volunteers have, are this energy that runs the town, and you don't get anything done without having a good core of volunteers willing to do the things that need to be done. So, so I thought it was important to have that in there, and it also kind of symbolizes the inner fire of the actual people who are volunteers, because they have to have a certain dedication that you don't see. So it's kind of a dual meaning in that regard. You've got the inner fire of the town, and the inner fire in the people who are the inner fire of the town. The complexity of the piece actually requires that you have a few extra hands, especially when we've got a two-part mold. One guy plunges the piece into the mold, but he can't let go of the pipe to try and extract it. So it takes another two people to try and separate the mold off of it, because it can stick. Glass can get sticky at that temperature, and it can get stuck in the mold. And if we leave it in there too long, it's just going to crack. So we'll have a ruined piece at that point. So because graphite really sucks the heat out of the glass, right? It's like doing anything with it, touching metal to the glass, it'll suck the heat out of the glass. So it takes a couple of guys in there, sometimes prying, sometimes physically holding on to the mold with a pair of gloves on, and then Paul can pull it up out of there once it's out, once it's been freed. It's important to pull up vertically so that we don't snap off some of the vertical striations in the mold, like these bits in here. That's solid graphite in the mold, and if we twist it, we can snap them off, and then we've ruined the mold, and we don't want to do that, right? It takes a while to cut one of those things because it's 6 inches thick. So it takes a few hands to get things done. This is actually my first time in Oakville. It's a very nice town. Everybody's really nice here, and it's almost surprising,
We're working on a workaround. Yep. And just the board will be in the chamber moving forward.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm trying to persuade.
Okay.
We're working on it.
I don't think the clerk's office would tell a counselor they couldn't bring cookies, so Ray and I could just smuggle stuff in.
That's right, we're just smuggling it, no?
Yeah.
We should at least have popcorn.
Well, I can make that happen.
It's easier with the IT.
I'm sorry? I'm ready. Thank you. Okay, I want to report that we have emerged from closed session, and I would look for a motion to receive the verbal update that we received in camera, as well as to take action on the direction provided in camera. That's been moved by Ray, seconded by Andrew. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Members of the board, we're at the point of new business. I have some new business, but does anybody else have new business before I have new business? Because I've got some good new business and some sad new business. But it's new business. Andrew?
Could I just ask to confirm the date of the next meeting, because there have been some changes in the last meeting?
Is the date of the next meeting March 16th still?
Correct.
Are we good? Okay. And I'm so relieved that it's not the third Thursday of the month.
Yes. Yep.
Anything further? Okay, so my new business is, first of all, a welcome to Ray Chisholm. Ray has joined our board in the new term of council. Ray, as you've heard in tonight's meeting, has had a plethora of experience in facility management and municipal parks and recreation management, and he's going to bring a lot of really good knowledge to our board. And welcome to the team, Ray. Thank you. And we have some new board members that will be joining us at the March meeting, I believe. That's accurate? That's what you've heard from clerks? I know we're dealing with it through the council process right now.
Yes.
So this is waiting for council's ratification.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. But the sad part of the meeting is that we are going to bid a fond farewell to some of our good friends, and we do have parting gifts. So I just want to, let's do it over there.
It's an involuntary departure, I think, from the board. Put that at your statistic now.
So we want to recognize the contributions of some of our departing members. The first is Steve Bright. Now, Steve joined the board at my request back in 2015. Our first year we were building skills-based boards, and Stephen had a particular skill set in communications, and that's something that we really wanted on the board at the time. And Stephen joined the board gladly, and he has been an incredible contributor for his 2 terms on the library board. And we're so appreciative for his support and his hard work and his due diligence. I can't thank him enough for being part of the board. So come on down, because we want to give you a little, like I said, a parting gift and a memory to... Terry, you want to join me?
Oh, can I stand on a riser so I look like
A little taller?
Louise?
So here, that's for you to recognize your service on the library. You can hang that on your wall. And there's a little parting gift here as well. So let's thank you so much for your service. I'm glad you're still going to be my constituent and friend. And
I'll still be sending you texts.
And we'll still be getting texts about trees and snow and everything else. And
Keep them busy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been great. I don't know, as a guy who writes speeches, I don't have one, but
We were counting on one. We gave it an extra hour for the agenda.
You should have been to my wedding. It was a heck of a speech. I don't know, listen, this has been awesome. Thank you for your leadership and bringing it. And this has been fantastic. And if nothing else, I hope that I help, take away a few typos in the report. And it'd be churlish to point out the typo on page 111, but I will let that one pass.
We may not miss that part, but certainly, Stephen, I think you've contributed much more than as our typos are. So thank you very much for your service.
Thank you very much. This is very thoughtful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you. We also want to say thank you and a fond farewell to a member who only joined us recently and apparently has decided not to re-up. So we want to say a big thank you to Savannah. You want to come over, Savannah? Sadly, we didn't get to know Savannah as well as we did Stephen, because we had Stephen here for many, many years. But Savannah, you were a wonderful contributor for the time that you spent. Thank you for being there when we needed you, because you filled an important role when we lost a couple members. And you made some wonderful contributions at our board meetings, and we truly appreciate your service to the library. Here's a little token of our appreciation for your time at the library, and we would like to get a photo for posterity. So thank you and good luck on your next adventure. We really appreciate your time and all of your attention to library business.
I mean, yeah, I appreciate spending time here. I'm just moving, so I won't be able to.
Oh, that's too bad. Oh, that's great I guess it's great for you, but it's too bad for us.
Yeah.
Your gains are lost.
I would have stayed, but.
Okay. Oh, and that's nice. You can take your nameplate home with you as well.
Oh.
You can't take bills.
Take the nameplate home, so you remember your name. I get my.
Who am I?
And
you can take your computer as well. See here? Oh, no, you can't hear that. We do also want to thank other members who are not here with us this evening. And we have Pankage and, of course, Janet Haslam-Field. Pankage was another 2-termer like Stephen was, joined us at a time when we were really working hard to build a skills-based board. He brought with him an extreme amount of experience in both public sector as well as financial administration as I believe he's a CPA. But he had made lots of contributions. If you're watching, Pankage, and I hope you are, or watching a replay, thank you so much for your service. We're going to miss you, like we're going to miss our other board members who are departing, and we wish you great luck on your next adventure. I understand he's joined a provincial board, which is keeping him very busy, but we are so appreciative for Pankage's contributions to the library system. They will be long remembered. And of course, Janet Hasler-Thiel, who has served with us as one term as a council appointee. Janet, I wish could have been here tonight with us, but Janet was a tremendous contributor and a very detail-oriented board member, and we really appreciated every moment of the time that she gave us, and she really added a lot of value to the things that we've done as a library board, and her contributions, like our other departing board members, will be seen in our libraries for generations to come. We have parting gifts and plaques for both of them as well, so they'll be presented soon, I guess. And how will we do that? Will they check them out from the library?
We can definitely reach out
Okay.
to Pankage, and I wasn't sure how you wanted to have to count.
Yeah, why don't I present it at council on Monday? Okay, that's terrific.
I'll leave it with you.
That's great. And you'll remember to bring it back?
Oh, I'm just going to leave it in my office.
Okay. And you won't eat it?
That's not, I make no comment.
Okay. So thank you for that. Thank you, everybody. And good luck to those who are waiting for news on their
Oh, Jeff,
reappointments.
Susan Finelli.
Susan Finelli. There's no plaque there.
I didn't put it out, but because I knew she wouldn't be here.
So I didn't want to say anything because I wasn't 100% sure, because I didn't see the plaque there. So Susan Finelli, who was actually a colleague of Ray's in Parks and Recreation, brought with her a vast degree of experience. Ray's kind of replacing Susan in that respect because, you know, the two of them have comparable experience, but Susan was a one-termer. She contributed a lot to the board while she was here, and Susan, we really appreciated your time that you gave us at the library board. Good luck with your new adventure. And like I said, of the others, your contributions will be long remembered and seen in you know, every branch in the library system. Thank you so much for your time away from your family, and we really appreciate that. So thank you to all, and we will see next month who's back at the table.
Anybody left?
There's a few still standing.
Jeff, can I just add a few comments about Susan Finelli?
You sure can, yep.
Susan, I've known Susan for many years. We have history, and she worked in our aquatics, and then we promoted her into the recreation field. And the transformation of Susan was an amazing growth for her, and living in Oakville, which is very advantageous, living in Oakville and understanding how things work. Susan has been redeployed or re-employed by the town. I don't know if you're aware of that. She's at Trafalgar Community Center as a part-time, but unfortunately by coming back into the full-time or full-time, part-time fold with the town, she unfortunately cannot sit on the library board. So she did, her and I had a great discussion. We were at the, matter of fact, ran into each other at Fortino's, and we sat there and talked there for a half an hour. Meanwhile, my ice cream melted. Anyways, she really misses not being here, and so thanks to Susan and all her years with the town and also with the Oakville Library Board. She'll be missed.
Yep.
Thank you.
She certainly will be. So thank you to Susan. We'll give her a little. Thank you. I haven't missed anybody, have I?
No.
Okay, good. I didn't see Susan's plaque, and so I didn't know if I should say anything. So.
Yep.
Okay, members of the board, that concludes, I believe, our new business. I'll ask you one more time if you have any new business to report. Seeing none, then I'll look for a motion to adjourn our meeting, noting that the next meeting is, as Andrew pointed out, Thursday, March 16th. It will be once again here in the council chamber, so I hope you can all attend. And if you're watching on YouTube, I hope that you'll tune in again to learn more about the exploits of the Oakville Public Library Board. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Bill. Boy, you're really on the ball tonight, Bill.
I told him, put his hand up.
No, it's been excellent. I never have to wait. Okay. Seconded by? Thank you, Meredith. The two anchor people, thank you. All in favor? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.